Hamdy, let me begin by asking you, now Black Magic is your first novel. Is it autobiographical in any way?
I think that the writer himself is a great source of creation and making his world in his novel, especially you are speaking about fiction. So sometimes it's very complicated to say this work is speaking about the author himself, his life. In this book we will talk about a love story between Nasser, his cameraman, and he's very young, for his woman that he chose to love and fell in passion, in a great passion. So yes, I myself, my life, my experiences are a great source of my work.
Now, as you said, the protagonist, Nasser, is a professional photographer, your main character.
Yeah.
And photography is a central theme in this novel, in Black Magic. And you actually have Nasser say at one point, and I'm quoting, "The photographer is a murderer who commits the perfect crime and leaves no trace." And Nasser also says at one point, he's thinking this, "What the camera does is black magic." So can you talk a little bit about photography and why this fascination with photography?
I will tell you. I studied philosophy in the Cairo University, and I tried to make a master about Walter Benjamin. And the main subject of this research was the photography and the philosophy of beauty and art in Walter Benjamin. So I read a lot about photography, and at the same time I started to change my career. I supposed to be at least a philosopher or a researcher in philosophy, I mean. But at that time I discovered I'm just a novelist, I'm a fiction writer. There's a lot of philosophical ideas in this novel about cinema, about camera, about what camera do. What I mean by this sentence, there is no reality in there. There is no reality in there, but we saw this reality through the eye of the camera. That's we you know, everywhere, TV screens, cinema, talk shows. It's not the reality. It's what the camera, how the camera presented the facts or the meeting of people or even the nature. So, and this camera has a lot of abilities to destroy the essence of this reality too. It never tells the truth. It can present the reality to us as very beautiful, and in the reality it's not beautiful.
But you used the word black magic. Now,
yes.
Why specifically black magic?
Black magic because it's to describe abnormal things, extraordinary, a huge ability to dominate our consciousness. And it's not the ideas of the writer, indeed, it's the ideas of Nasser as a cameraman, and it's his world, and that's how he thinks about the subject.
Could you describe to the reader a little bit the relationship between Nasser and Fatin? It's quite a complicated relationship.
When I spoke about it, the first sentence came to my mind, it's a love story. So what a love story in this work? It's very complicated because he's young and she's a little bit old. So there is a lot of problems with that. She has long experience, more than him. She's from another aspect. He's supposed to be an artist, and she's a doctor. She has her scientific mentality too. how to follow this.
Now, Nasser says towards the end of the novel, I was obscene in my passion. What does he think when he says that?
Obscene, my passion. It means to be completely naked passion. Complete. I don't mean it's the body. I mean the soul, the spirit, and it's how we are thinking about love, and what is love in the eye of Nasser? It's completely naked. To be completely naked. I mean no secrets.
You mean vulnerable? To make yourself vulnerable?
Yes, and completely good mood with the other. Good mood with the nature, good mood with the whole world. That's what I mean with obscene, completely naked passion. That's what Nasser means.
Why is sex such a central theme in the book? I mean, at the beginning of the novel you write, and I'm quoting you, sex. In this age of ours, sex has become an icon, the only remaining icon, and that has been made holy, unquote. Why is Nasser so obsessed with sex?
Because Nasser does not think that we can speak about love without sex. Sex is the main thing, and maybe he is from a generation, I mean that the generations, what we call in Egypt 19th generations, the especially in literary atmosphere, we call he somehow belonged to this generation who discovered sex and love when he was very young, and they in this generation, which is my generation too, we were brave enough to admit that sex is very important thing in love and in any relationship. And you know, it's in Egypt. It's not acceptable for many people and in the society too. So it's the main details in the novel and in Nasser ideas. And he spoke a lot about corruption, about politics. So he speaks frankly about sex here too, and his relationship with love, what we call love.
Would you say that in a way this is going past a red line, because it is a taboo subject in Egypt?
Yeah.
Do you feel that this in a way is a novelty in your book, that you speak, that you have your main protagonist talk so openly about sex in a country where it's really kind of...
It's a great question indeed, because you know, yes, it's taboos, especially sex, policy, religion here in Egypt, but a lot of writers too presented a lot of works about sex. We can remember Idris, we can remember Naguib Mahfouz, but the society itself changed, not for better, unfortunately. For me, when I remember how I started to write, I remember that before this work, I achieved 2 novels in manuscripts and never want to publish them. So, but from them I learned a lot. I learned that the real writer is a real freedom. You cannot practice the action of creation without being very, very free in your soul, in your ideas. You see, I want to say, what others don't see, because they are concentrated concentrating very much about themselves. The writer must be free from himself at first, so he can see. So here, Nasser, so that is, I have to speak about that because it's the reality, because the others must know that too, or discuss this subject too, because it's part of our life. So I never care about taboos. I was brave enough to choose my way as a writer, and you know what that's mean in Egypt, and prefer to be a researcher or a scholar. So I think it's our choices. So it's our choices too. My choice as a writer is to speak frankly about these taboos.
I'd like to ask you a question about writing. How difficult is it to write for you?
I started to publish when I was 20 years, when I was a student in the section of philosophy in Cairo University. It's 23 years ago. Writing for me was a lot of pain and very hard and difficult. And through about 15 years, I tried to achieve my first book, first novel indeed. I knew a lot of pain because I couldn't write. Writing itself was very hard for me, and it makes me very, very close to myself. And so this moment, I discovered it's my fate somehow to have this painful action. But after that, after more than 20 years, now writing for me means life. It's my life. So I started to enjoy it. I started to not to care, to be very careful about it. I started to deal with that as a beloved. So it gives me a lot of happiness too. So it changed from very painful thing to great thing.
In a previous interview, you said, "I do not target anyone specifically with what I write. I target everyone at once." And in Black Magic, it seems that way, that you're targeting various elements, such as the corrupt and shameless cinema, the TV building that you refer to as the Republic of Maspero. And at the beginning of the novel, you describe the attendees of a major conference, the Third Millennium Conference, and you describe them to some extent as creatures or professional actors. Now, did you intend to do this? I mean, when you start writing your novel, do you have these ideas of things that you want to address and maybe criticize and target, and then you introduce them in the novel, or did it just sort of happen as you were writing the novel?
I will start answering this question from how I wrote this novel, or how did it begin. It began from very, very small scene. 1998, I was living in Sayyida Zainab, just a floor above the undertaker of the quarter. And every day I saw him with shrouds and the smoke. So it's undertaker's office. And his scene was, for me, I mean the scene make something flash in my mind, and I was in a very strange mood.
So I started with her, and that's how the novel started. I don't target anything or anybody, and target everybody at the same time. Here I'm speaking about the value of publishing, somehow like that. Writing is mine, when the book is just manuscript. But when you publish the book, it's another thing, because now it's public. Now there is a reader. So when I'm writing, I target myself and the one at the same time. But when you publish the book, so you target everybody, not in our years, but in the future. You're speaking to the present and to the future at the same time. So that's what I mean by this phrase. You're speaking about a lot of places like Maspero Republic. It's the world of the novel. It's the places that Nasser worked, living, have a lot of relationships. Speaking about corruption and dictatorship is a part of the mentality of Nasser himself. It's how he saw Egypt in the millennium, and how he saw the society changed a lot, and the need more changing too. So it was very normal to speak about corruption, dictatorship, and seeing these politicians like creatures. I think it is very clear that it was the reality of Egypt at that time.
It seems that you reveal painful aspects of your protagonist's life, and somehow you slip them in a very discreet and surprising way towards the end, or in the middle of the chapter, almost like unexpected shared secrets. For example, his relationship with his brother. You talk about his relationship with his father, and what happened to his grandfather.
So we must remember that the story beginning with Nasser about 30 years old, and he's in action, he's in the event itself, and that's the first time he met Fatin, the woman he fell in love with her. As a novelist, I did a history for Nasser, and the artistic problem, how to produce this history by right way, by right artistic way. It was a problem because I start with the event itself. So I used flashbacks. So in some chapters I mentioned with very short sentence to the history of Nasser, his relationship with his brother, and even a love story when he was adolescent.
There are two murders in this novel, each one quite morbid and spontaneous and bizarre. Why introduce them in the novel when the two characters who commit these crimes, in actual fact, don't appear much throughout the novel? But I mean, these are very powerful moments when you describe these two crimes taking place.
You know, the very strange thing is that these two murders indeed happen in fact, and it's real events. One of them in Sayyida Zainab, and it was somehow not very famous, but known event that a young man who works in a kosher restaurant killed an old man. He never met him without any reason. How did I write it? I didn't know how, but I mean in the context of the novel, it has a great meaning. That means very old man killed an old man without no reasons. So it was simple somehow, but at the same time related to the life of Nasser himself. The first one, I think it has a political idea, and it's well known that a great philosopher killed his wife by this way. So it came to my novel.
Thank you, Hamdi, for this interview.
Thank you so much.